We're going to talk about Puerh tea now. And Puerh teas have been known and have become popular in this country probably over the last 8 to 10 years. Puerh is actually the name of the marketing town where these teas have been bought and sold for hundreds of years. It doesn't translate as anything, it's just the name of the town in Yunnan province. And Puerh teas fall into the category of dark teas. In China, they call them black teas, but we actually use black for a different kind of tea. So we call them dark teas. Now, these are teas which actually go through a secondary processing. It's quite complicated, but they are aged. And the longer they are left to age, the more the flavour profile changes in the tea. So to make a Puerh tea, we start by making a green tea. And that green tea is made in the perfectly normal green tea manufacturing way. The leaves and leaf buds are picked. They are pan fried to kill off the enzymes that would otherwise allow oxidation to happen. They're rolled to develop the flavour, and then they're actually dried in the sun. And while they dry in the sun, the green colouring of the leaf actually will turn a little bit brown because it lies out in the air for quite a long time to get rid of all the water content. Now that green tea is actually called Char, which is a raw tea. It's not refined, it's not sorted, it's just a basic green tea. And all Puerh tea starts that way. Now from that point, you can actually follow a traditional old-fashioned methodology for making Puerh tea, which is called raw Puerh. Or you can use a more modern method which was developed in the 1970s, which speeds up the aging process and is called cooked or ripened Puerh. And although the end product may have a fairly similar flavour and aroma profile, the methodology is quite different. So to make raw Puerh, what happens to the Char, the raw tea, is that it is gently steamed and then it's either compressed into cakes, which can be the size of a plate or the size of a little disc, almost like a little round biscuit, or it can be a very large rectangle or round of tea. It's compressed into that shape and then it is put away in special conditions which are temperature controlled and humidity controlled and left to age. And very often the people who make those teas won't even taste a sample of that tea until after about 7 years, because it's going to take that long for the aging process to start. And basically what happens inside the tea is that because there are bacteria in the tea because of the moisture content and because of the tea and the area it's come from, there will be things like yeasts and penicilliums and all sorts of microflora and microbacteria. The tea is actually alive, rather like a cheese, and it will go on changing over the years. And each time you taste that tea, 1 year after another, the flavour profile will have changed. And in the early years, it will be quite green, quite astringent, quite metallic, quite powerful in flavour. But over time, that will settle down to give you something that is actually quite sweet, sometimes even treacly and mellow in flavour. Really quite delicious. With the more modern method of making Puerh, the ripened or cooked Puerhs, once you've got your Char, that is then actually sprayed with water and heaped under covers for a week or a month, as long as it takes for that bacterial activity to start. And then the tea will either be packed into discs or little blocks, or it will be left loose and it will be aged for maybe 1 or 2 years, maybe longer. But over the aging process, again, the flavour profile will change. With black teas and oolong teas and white teas, we've talked about oxidation. And oxidation is just a reaction between the juices in the tea leaves and the oxygen in the air around them as they are processed. With Puerh teas, there is actually a certain amount of oxidation, but there is also fermentation, which happens over the time that the tea is stored. And those two processes, oxidation and fermentation, are different. And it's the fermentation process that happens in Puerh that makes it very different from black teas and white teas and oolong teas.